guys, thanks for checking out this video. Before we get started though, I'm trying a little something new on this video. Normally I shoot with a GoPro camera, but it's not always the best for all lighting, right? It's mostly an action camera, works better for outdoors, stuff like that. So I am now using a DSLR camera, trying a little bit different formatting with the video, see how it looks. Do me a favor, drop a comment in the comment section. Let me know what you think. Is this a better format for you know, kind of more static shooting? I'd really be interested to hear your thoughts on it. I recently published a video that was titled "I Stand Behind KTM and Why You Should Too." And boy, did it get a lot of comments, okay? And here's the reason, or the premise, for why I put out that video and why I think we should all, as motorcycle riders, stand behind KTM. And the one sole reason for that is that KTM is the largest driver of innovation in the motorcycle industry, okay? They take the most risks, the most chances. They are the ones who are leading the charge in developing new technology for our sport, whether it be dirt bikes, street bikes, you know, MotoGP on down. They take chances. They create innovation in the business, all right? And for anybody to wish for KTM to go out of business, it's just foolish if you ask me, all right? And by the way, KTM's not going out of business. All of you who are worried about buying a KTM because, oh my God, they might go out of business, they're not going anywhere, man. That is just social media having a field day. Everybody comes to the internet to complain. We all know that. KTM's not going anywhere, man. Are they going to restructure? Is it going to be different moving on in the future? Perhaps, good chance, but KTM's not going away, okay? The other, and the reason it's so important that KTM doesn't go away, whether you like KTM or not, I don't care if you don't like KTMs. If you don't like KTMs, don't ride them. Ride whatever you like. That's what's great about this country, and that's what's great about motorcycling, right? Ride what you want to ride. But here's the deal. The other big name motorcycle manufacturers also benefit from KTM's innovative style, all right? What have all the other big name companies, with the exception of a few, what have they really come up with in the last 30 years, right? Yamaha maybe with their cross-plane inline 4 25 years ago, maybe 20 years ago now. Okay, great. But other than that, what have they really, where have they gone out on a limb, right? When KTM takes a chance and they create something new, even if it's kind of a failure maybe, it gives the other motorcycle companies a chance to improve upon it, right? And sometimes they don't even improve upon it, they just use it, okay? So it doesn't matter who you are. If you like motorcycles, rooting for KTM is important, man. It really is. Okay, now, am I just woofing a bunch of garbage here? Well, I don't want people thinking that. So I went down to my dealership here in Denver. They are one of the largest dealers of KTM in the country, okay? They have a humongous inventory. They push a lot of KTMs out the doors. And I went and I sat down with the service manager and asked him about some thoughts that I had, some theories that I have, and I basically wanted his take on what he sees as a guy who does a huge amount of KTM service, okay? Now, let's talk about the hot button issue that everybody's talking about right now with KTM, and that is the camshafts on the 790/890 inline twin, right? I asked him specifically, I said, how many camshaft warranties have you guys been dealing with here at the shop? He told me that in the 2 years he's been working there as the service manager, they have had 2 camshaft issues, okay? Now this is one of the largest selling dealerships of KTMs. 2 camshaft issues in 2 years, all right? Now, I can't tell you what everybody else in every other market is experiencing, right? But what I can tell you is that this company or this dealership that moves a lot of KTMs has only seen 2 issues. That's fact-based. That's not keyboard warriors on the internet or on social media saying every KTM 790 engine is blowing up because they have crap cams, okay? That is actual data from the dealership. That being said, I own an 890. I bought one recently. I love it. It is so awesome. And everybody I know that has one says the same thing. Now, as a side note, excuse me, a friend of mine that works at that dealership has a 790 Adventure R with 32,000 miles and has not had one issue. He's only done the standard maintenance on the motorcycle, okay? No problems whatsoever. So what I'm trying to say here is the camshaft issue, in my belief, is not as big as it's being made out to be on the internet, okay? Now, I also asked him about all across the board with KTM models, what are some of the issues he sees with some of the models, right? The most common things that happen with the motorcycles. And I also said to him that I believe it is a case of people buying a high performance machine and riding it like a standard run-of-the-mill Honda Rebel, you know, or whatever you want to use as an example, okay? And that by not doing the maintenance required on these high-performance machines, they're running into issues. And he agreed 100%, okay? Some of the things he brought up to me that he sees, let's say specifically with the 690/701, the LC4, you know, thumper motor. The first thing he brought up was all the problems that they see is mostly from dirty intake, okay? And he immediately mentioned the Rottweiler performance intake. Not in a bad way, okay? The Rottweiler performance intake is a superior bolt-on piece of equipment. It really is fantastic. But what is it? It is a dirt bike foam oilable, cleanable, reusable filter, okay? So people are putting this Rottweiler performance intake on their 701 or 690 and going and they're cleaning and oiling the filter at their oil changes, right? Which, by the way, the factory recommendation is 6,000 miles. Way too long. If you go more than 3,000 miles without changing your oil, you're making a mistake, in my opinion. I change mine at least every 3,000 miles. Sometimes after, if I go out for a 4 or 5 day trip and I ride the piss out of it in hot, dusty conditions, I will come home and change the oil after 600 miles, okay? A lot of people would have a heartburn with it. Well, the factory says you can go 6,000 miles without changing oil. Okay, go ahead. And then when you have those problems, you know, yeah, it's just one of those things, man. We know that dealer or that manufacturers want to sell their products, so they're going to put a big, long 6,000 mile interval on their oil changes. Doesn't mean it's really that good of an idea to do it. If you're going to spend the money on something like this, spend a few extra bucks a year on changing the oil more often, okay? But back to the story. Not that these people that put the Rottweiler performance intake are bad actors or anything like that, right? They're just not educated enough on that particular subject, right? So they throw the Rottweiler intake, they run the hell out of the bike for 6,000 miles, they go and they clean their filter. But if, you know, people who ride dirt bikes, which a lot of us, it's the same thing. We ride dirt bikes, we ride adventure bikes, we ride all sorts of bikes, right? If you ride a dirt bike, you go out and you spend a weekend at the track, you come home, you wash and re-oil your filter, right? After 1 weekend of riding. It's the same filter. You can't go 6 months, you can't go 6,000 miles without pulling that filter off and cleaning it. If you're going to be riding out in dusty conditions, when you get home, you need to pull that thing off and clean it. Because what happens is those filters are designed to catch massive amounts of dust and dirt. That's why the oil is so sticky. But it catches so much that eventually it will load up, and that stuff's got to get through there somehow, right? So it will pull it through, and now it's into your engine, okay? So that was a big problem, he said. The other thing is people making all these mods to their bike, not understanding what they're doing. For instance, my 890, I pulled the cat off. I haven't had it retuned yet, but I haven't even ridden it really since I've done it. But it is on the list. I definitely am going to get it tuned, because when you pull your cat off, you're messing with how the engineers designed the bike, what the computer parameters are being told. Okay, it can only work well for a certain amount of time before you start running into issues. A lot of the maintenance issues that are happening with the KTM group of motorcycles, KTM, Husky, Gas, CF Moto, what have you, aren't negligence, I wouldn't say, but more a lack of good knowledge on what the hell it is you're riding, okay? You bought a performance motorcycle that requires you as the purchaser to do certain things. If you don't like that, by all means, go get yourself a Honda, Suzuki, Yamaha, whatever. But it's kind of, we got to put a stop to, we got to stop listening to all these people that say, I bought a KTM, I did all this, all of these mods, I did this, that, and the other, and then it broke on me. Well, yeah, because you didn't do the right things, man. Because for every story like that, there's another story of a guy who's got a KTM super modded out to the max, and it runs perfectly. My 701, I've got everything you can do to it performance-wise. I've got a power commander, I've got the auto tune, I've got a header, I've got an exhaust, I've got the EGR delete, the intake or the secondary air system delete, all that stuff, right? I've got a Rottweiler performance intake. It's pushing the maximum amount of power that bike can push. No problems at all, because I put a lot of extra time into doing the maintenance on the bike. And I think that as long as you do that, you will always be happy with your KTM product. The second thing I wanted to talk to him about is my belief that the dealership is important as the middleman in the success or failure of not only KTM as the company, but with the relationships with the buyer, okay? It's my belief. Now, first of all, KTM, for us here in America, KTM is an Austrian group. The Austrians are different people than the Americans, right? Not better or worse, but different. And it's my belief that as the American dealerships, when a customer comes to them and says, hey, I have this problem with my KTM product, they call to KTM, and the Austrians are a little bit more cut and dry than we are as Americans, right? And so they're like, yeah, it's this, that. And the dealer says, oh, okay. Well, that ain't gonna work, man. If the dealer does not go to bat for the purchaser, there's a broken chain, there's a broken link in the chain there, right? I asked him what his thoughts were on that, and he said 100% agrees with that. Now, he did say that the reps, a lot of it has to do with the company reps, okay? There's a lot that goes into building a relationship from the company ownership down to the guy that rides the motorcycle, okay? And every company has reps in every region of the U.S., and their job is to be the go-between between the dealership and the motorcycle manufacturer, okay? Now, he said, one thing he said is like Honda. He said his Honda rep, that dude is on it, right? He calls me and says, hey, I'm having a customer saying this, that, or that. That dude jumps on a plane, gets in a car, whatever, and he comes down there. And he said, as far as that goes, Honda is by far and away his favorite. But he said KTM is just kind of in the middle. They're not bad, they're not good. They're just where they should be. Excuse me. But he also said that if he didn't want to build a relationship with that KTM rep, a relationship would not be built, right? So it was incumbent upon him as a service manager to build a relationship, because we all know when a friend calls you in the middle of the night asking for help, you help him. When a telemarketer calls you in the middle of the night asking for something, you hang up on him, right? You have to build those relationships, and his point was relationships in the industry are crucial to not only customer satisfaction, but to getting stuff done in the service realm as well. On a personal note, I have a 1290 Super Duke. It's a 22 Gen 3, and I have made some videos on it in the past where I mentioned basically the only problem I've ever had with that bike is one day I jumped on the bike, started it up, and I had a preload adjuster error on my dash, okay? Took it to the shop, they couldn't figure it out. The preload adjuster was working, but they couldn't find out why that error was there and why it couldn't clear, blah, blah, blah. They spent like 4 hours on the phone with KTM, and in the end, my dealer's position on it wasn't my fault, and it wasn't anybody's fault that they had to spend that time on the phone. But they finally worked it out. They had to, basically send a patch in through the ECM to clear that code. They didn't charge me for it, okay? I don't know. They said they were going to talk with KTM and figure out who's going to pay for that. They never talked to me again about it though. So they handled it. Again, customer service with the dealership, super important, right? Well, the other day I went to fire up it's winter here in Colorado. It's getting cold. I went to fire it up. The battery was dying. It didn't have enough to crank the bike, right? So I plugged it into my battery tender, let it sit for a couple of days. I went out there the other day to fire it up. That same preload adjuster error is on the bike again. So I was talking with the service manager and I asked him about that. And I said, I believe it's probably something electrical glitch type of problem, not a problem with the bike. And he said, what was your battery? And I said it was very low when I hooked it up to the tender, blah, blah, blah. So on and so forth. And the first thing he said is that is almost guaranteed what the problem is. Now, one of the problems is I can't probably just unhook the battery for 15 minutes and then hook it back up. It's going to be a hard code, so it's going to require a hard reset. I may have to take it in and pay for it. I don't know. But it is my fault I let the battery get low, right? But basically how he explained it to me with KTMs especially, so the electrical system is kind of like your body, right? When you are out when you're stuck out in the cold for an extended period of time, eventually your body will start pulling all the blood from your arms and legs into your core to keep the vital organs functioning, right? And it's kind of like, sorry, arms and legs, you guys are going to go first. Same thing with the electrical system on the KTM. There are so many important lifeblood pieces of equipment on the bike that it allocates how much resource it has left in that battery to the primary functionality of the bike, right? So when it doesn't have enough juice to do your preload adjuster and run your computer and your traction control and all that other stuff, it starts taking juice away from some of the more ancillary items like the preload adjuster, okay? Doesn't mean that the bike is broken, doesn't mean that the bike is junk, it just means that I didn't leave enough juice in the battery to keep it going, okay? Again, probably a lot of owners out there that are running into these problems that they just don't fully understand the bike that they're on. It doesn't make the bike bad, it just makes it maybe not for that person, right? I received a comment on the video that I made about supporting KTM from a guy who said, basically, you say you got 10,000 miles on your Super Duke, that's nothing, that's not even running, period. Talk to me when you get to 50,000 miles. And he basically said, you're never going to get there, it's going to break. And then he started talking about Ducatis and stuff. I'm like, what Ducati have you ever seen? I personally have never seen or heard of a Ducati with 50,000 miles on it, right? And talking, because my dealership, they also sell Ducatis, and talking with him about it, the average lifespan of a Ducati motor is somewhere between 20 and 30,000 kilometers, right? So somewhere between 12 and 18,000 miles. Most people who buy Ducatis, what are they doing with them? They're riding them 1 or 2 days out of the month when the weather's nice, when they can afford to get out and spend a little time. And then mostly they're just polishing it with an old baby diaper to keep it looking pretty, right? Ducatis aren't running 50,000 miles. I had a Ducati. That thing, I loved it. I love motorcycles, right? I don't care what brand they are. If I love it, I love it. Gave me more sleepless nights than any bike I've ever owned. Now, it was a work of art, and it was pristine, and I loved it, but man, did it give me fits. So, who out there is saying, oh, buy a Ducati because they're the reliable bike? Bull crap. They're not reliable. They're performance machines, right? Now, what this all boils down to, I believe, there are some people who probably should not be buying KTMs. Not because you don't have the skill to ride them or anything like that, or not because you're not good enough to own a KTM. I don't care about any of that crap. But there are some people out there who don't have the institutional knowledge, maybe, or the wherewithal to say, look, I'm going to buy this really expensive bike, and then I'm also going to spend a ton of money every year maintaining it. Who wants to do that? Not everybody, that's for sure. A lot of people want to buy a Yamaha and just get on it every day. Every time they hit the ignition switch, it fires up. They ride it. It's fast. They can haul ass all around town, zip it into the garage, turn it off, walk away. Come back the next day, do the same thing again. Yeah, that's great. But for those of you out there listening to this video who maybe are curious about a KTM, but have heard so much bad stuff, look, the internet is full of keyboard warriors. If you go to the video I made, and I'll post a link to it down below in the description, and see the comments, you can delineate between the people who have had KTMs and had problems with them, because they're actually pretty respectful about how they talk about it, because you know they had a good time on the bike. It's freaking an awesome bike. And then there's the people who just trash KTM, and they clearly do not ride KTMs, have not owned a KTM. Maybe there's a little bit of jealousy there. I don't know. I don't care. What I do care about, though, is there are a lot of people maybe walking away from KTM because they've heard all the bad stuff. One, KTM isn't going anywhere. Okay, Chase Sexton just won an Anaheim opener on his KTM. Big boost right there. Okay, they've made some changes already. I believe they're getting rid of their Supermoto. I believe they're getting rid of their MotoGP project at the end of this year. But what is hard enduro going to be without KTM? Nothing. It's going to disappear, right? I'm sorry about that new Yamaha that just came out with a two-stroke in it. It ain't there yet. It's not going to dominate the world, okay? So KTM's not going anywhere, guys. Don't be afraid to buy a KTM. Also, the cam issue seems to be kind of isolated to the European market and not so much here in North America. So that's not as big a worry as maybe some people are making it out to be. If you want to buy a KTM, you have to know that you've got to do extra maintenance on it. It is a high performance machine. It needs to be treated as such, right? I hope that I have made my case that it is beneficial to everyone who rides a motorcycle that KTM survives. We should all be rooting for them. We should all be encouraging their courage in innovation and the fact that they are the ones who get a lot of it done for us who ride motorcycles, right? Once again, hey, please let me know down in the comments if you like the new setup with the DSLR filming instead of the GoPro. My camera does not have a very good audio mic, so I'm using different audio recording and video recording. There's a lot of extra work that goes into this, but I'm trying to get a good professional product out there. So yeah, just let me know, man. And if anybody has any suggestions, I'm more than happy to hear them. Thank you. Okay, so once again, if you like the video, please give me a great big thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and ring that notification bell so you get notified anytime I put out new content. Have a great rest of your day wherever you are, and I hope to see you on the road, the track, or the trail at some point. Go get it.